Buccaneers chat with our good buddy JC Allen from Sports Illustrated. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Good. How you doing, man? I saw the shoes. I listened to the last segment and colorful clothes, stuff like that. I'm like, oh God, I wonder what Jay's wearing today because I know you always come correct with it. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, my friend. I'm good. Yeah, I mean, it's funny now. I was having this conversation the other day with somebody. I wore some brown shoes last year, and they were the most expensive shoes that I have. And everybody was like, "What's wrong with you? Are you okay? Do you have a head cold? Why are you wearing brown shoes?" And I was like, "These are the most expensive shoes I have, and nobody even likes them. I think I've only worn them one time, so it doesn't matter where you find me." And even the other day, I was wearing pink sneakers, and Darren Radish from the Lightning are like, "Bro, do you have any normal shoes?" I'm like, "Yeah, maybe once in a while." Rondé Barber's actually giving me grief the other day too. So it's the nature of the beast, man. Yeah, but it's good to have you on the show, man, to talk some Buccaneer football. Let's get right into one of the big things that you brought up and broke the other day about Lavonte David and the Buccaneers. Just give us an update on, what you put out there and also anything else that you've been hearing regarding number 54 possibly being back with Tampa Bay next season.
Yeah, so the Bucs want him back. I mean, I think that's no secret after what he did last year at age 35. He's still got it. He might have dropped off a little bit in coverage a little bit, but they found other ways to utilize him, maximize his skill set, and you saw that as a pass rusher, coming up with unique ways to get him involved in the blitz. I think he was tied with third on the team in sacks with Logan Hall with like 5.5 or something like that, close to those numbers. But this is still comes down to his decision. If he wants to come back, the Bucs are going to bring him back. I don't think Lavonte's looking for a record-setting contract or anything like that. He's stated the last 2 years that he's year to year. And those conversations, as I reported on Tuesday, we're going to start to take place starting this week with his agent and his camp there in Indy for the Combine, obviously. And obviously, Josina Anderson reported that meeting happened yesterday, which is along the lines of what I was hearing. It's pretty much Lavonte, take as much time as you need. Obviously, the sooner the better. Free agency is in about 12 days. The draft and preparation for that is underway. But I don't see a situation where Lavonte doesn't come back to the Bucs. He had a lot of juice left. He was, specifically down on himself and downhearted after the loss to the Washington Commanders in the playoffs because, as I feel and as I'm sure the Bucs feel, that's probably a game they should have won.
And so that's what you think, JC, as far as why he was so, because I've seen him the last couple of years after the season, and he was super emotional. I mean, KJ Britt walked by me, and you and I are both down in the locker room after the game, and KJ Britt walks by, he's got tears in his eyes. Lavonte David, he walks by, he's looking really emotional. And I just said, he looks a lot more emotional than years past. So you think it's more of, hey, that was a game they should have won, and they don't have as many opportunities as that, rather than, hey, that could have been it?
No, I feel like, and I'm glad you mentioned KJ Britt because KJ Britt likely not returning, and that's someone that Lavonte has really taken under his wing since he got here, especially the last year and a half with the whole Devin White situation. And that's what Lavonte does. He becomes that big brother type of role. He was that to Devin White and really kind of stepped into that role with KJ Britt. So knowing Britt's probably gone, I'm sure that contributed to, the team's going to look a lot different. Golston's probably going to retire, someone that he's been with for a long time. And there's some uncertainties around some other guys on the team. I'm sure, those feelings and wow, if this was my last game, what a tough way to go out in a game we probably should have won. All those things I think contributed to it. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to what he wants to do. And I think that's to continue playing his career. He said, he wants to go out on his own terms, but this Bucs team is right there. I feel like, and listening to Todd Bowles and Jason Light the other day, they're kind of plan for this offseason. Again, they didn't really give you anything, but you could kind of subtle notes. That they're going to be aggressive in building this roster, especially on the defensive side of the ball with the offensive side of the ball mostly set. And I think Lavonte is going to want to be a part of that for another year because he can still go. He can still play. But ultimately, again, it comes down to his decision. I don't think the contract's going to be crazy, somewhere around $6 to $7 million a year for the year. And then, again, he's on a year-to-year basis. So it comes down to him. He's going to take his time and think about it. I think we'll probably have an answer sooner rather than later, but no clarity on the timetable when he's going to make that answer, and the Bucs are willing to wait.
It's Bucs or nobody, right? Though,
it's
JC?
Bucs or nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, other teams have reached out. It's not happening. He's going to be I am that man. He is that man for a reason. And it's Bucs or nobody.
Yeah, I'm with you, man, and that's great. I wish we see that with a lot. I wish we saw that with a lot more athletes, but it looks like Lavonte David, Mike Evans, two of those guys.
Chris
I'll get
Godwin,
back
I
to
think, is another one of them.
that kind of leading into that one. We'll get back to the defense in a second. I want to ask you about Chris Godwin. What's your take on the dead money, the contract, the injury, your perception on what it's going to take for him to come back? The comments made by Jason Light and Todd Bowles up there in Indy. Like, what's your whole take on the Chris Godwin situation? How much it'll cost for him to return here, and if you think that is going to come to fruition?
Yeah, so I think it's very telling because this isn't the first song and dance with Chris Godwin, right? I mean, he's been
Right.
tagged twice before they got a deal with him, and I go back to kind of, and people change, things change, but go back to his wife Mariah, who was very vocal 2 years ago. She did a Q&A and with some fans, and she talked about how they love Tampa. Obviously, they just had a baby. Their foundation is here. They're very rooted in this community and do a lot for this community, a lot of things that people don't know that they do. But she also talked about how they don't, they love Tampa because it's still close to their family who's in that, Maryland area, Delaware area. So it's easy for them to get down here, short flight, and that they'll never move back to the snow. She said she's over the snow. So right off the bat, I start whittling down teams and where he could potentially go, especially if that's still the way they feel. With a newborn, I highly doubt they want to pick up and move and have to move their entire life to another city. So I think that plays a huge part into it. And you start kind of looking at maybe Jacksonville's been thrown out there, maybe Dallas. They're not going to go West Coast. It's too far. New Orleans, Atlanta, Miami. That's kind of the general area you could get a feel for them to stay out of the snow, stay close to their family, etc. And it all just comes back to Tampa. Chris Godwin has been not just a pillar on the community, but a pillar on the team. This is not his first rodeo coming back from a season-ending injury. I think he, obviously he had the torn ACL, but then in 2019 he had an injury that ended his season prematurely. That's when you had Rashad Perriman going off and getting that big contract from the Jets.
Right.
So he's had to work his way back, and Jason Light said that there's nobody I trust in this world, especially on this team, to work their way back from an injury. Now what that looks like is going to be a lot different than what it looked like if he was healthy. He was leading the league in yards, receptions, first downs, and other average depth of target. He was absolutely killing it before his injury and was lining himself up for about a $30 million payday. That doesn't probably come his way now that he's got to come back from an injury. He's still in the building meeting with the training staff and getting, work done. I think you're probably looking at more of somewhere between $18 to $21 million a year. I'm sure the contract negotiations are happening. That's why they did move that void date to give them some more time right before up until free agency. Right. It would be shocking to me to see him test free agency, but it could be one of those things like, hey, let's kind of see where our numbers at, bring it back. They're having those side conversations. The agents are all this week anyways. Right. But I think you're probably landing him around there. He probably came in at around like 25 to 26. They're probably coming in around like 17, 16, somewhere with the injury and the age. I think they'll meet somewhere right in the middle between that 18 and $21 million a year mark. And he'll be a Buck for at least the next 2 years. I think it's a 2-year deal. And then they reassess the situation from there. I think Mike probably re-up for one more year after this. And then you have Chris and Mike kind of on expiring contracts, and you figure out what you can do. Do you have Jalen McMillan? He's the guy. Maybe you draft a guy like Pat McMillan if he falls to 19, and you have the law firm like you mentioned yesterday. Mm-hmm. It's a wait and see. Same thing with Lavonte, but at least you know that there is conversation, dialogue going, and they both want to be here. It's just a matter of making the dollars and cents work out of the bottom line.
Where you at with pick 19, brother? I mean, I embarrassment of riches if Godwin comes back and they take Ted McMillan and you're looking around and Jalen's your fourth, right? But
I would love
I would love it too, but we're not playing Madden, right? And I think defensively, if this Buccaneers team wants to, instead of just being a division contender, being a team that is going to be really taken serious, they need to shore up the defensive side of the ball. So, listen, if they take it, then you got to trust Jason Light. He's earned that benefit of the doubt. But where do you think they go at 19 if they had their choice? Would it be a Ted McMillan? Would it be, a Green? Would it be another guy? Like, where do you think if they had their optimal pick, who would the Buccaneers choose at 19?
So 19 is such a tricky spot this year.
Is.
I feel like there's probably like 10 true first round, 15 fringe first rounders, and you're on the outside of that. I think Tet McMillan or Malachi Starks falling would be probably optimal situation there, as I think by the time that the Bucs are on the board, you're probably looking at Mike Green's off the board. Obviously, Carter's off the board. James Pierce Jr. is probably off the board there. And then you're looking at Michael Williams. Could he be there? And then you're kind of looking at that second wave of kind of edge defenders. And again, nobody is a sure thing besides Abdul Carter. All these guys have holes and deficiencies they need to work on. Shamar Stewart being another one. So if you're at 19 and you're all those guys are gone, I think you're really probably looking to find a partner to dance with to move back a little bit. Maybe recoup that 6th round pick, maybe pick up a 4th or 3rd or 5th, and be able to address maybe. Now you can look at it and say, all right, now we can go out and we can maybe take XYZ in the 2nd or 3rd round because we have another pick there to address the defensive side of the ball. And I think when you're looking at the draft, probably from pick 20. And I'd probably even go 15 all the way to probably like 70 something there. They're all similar talented players, Again, first round grades, first round talent, first round picks are 3 different things. And I just don't think there's that many. I don't think there's going to be any at 19 left on the board. A name that's popular, that's starting to pick up some steam. Donovan Ezaraku from BC is a guy who, as a pass rusher, if they're looking for one of those, they can probably 19, I don't think would be too rich. Obviously, a lot of people have talked about Jihad Campbell, kind of that tweener, plays linebacker, can play edge for them as well. And then obviously the cornerbacks are going to be a big conversation too, with that Siobhan Ravel from ECU. He said he met with the Buccaneers, had a formal interview with them at the Combine. Obviously Benjamin Morrison is another guy. He also had a formal interview with the Bucs. And funny story enough, his father played with Todd Bowles with back when they were the Washington Redskins, his rookie season Bulls last season. So there's some familiarity with him. Benjamin Morrison didn't even know that until he had his formal and Todd Bowles brought it up. So, but you look in the 2nd round and there's some good cornerbacks there. So if they wanted to wait there, a sneaky name to watch. And I know they have a guy they really like in Cade Otton, but Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State, has had a formal interview with the Buccaneers, said it went really well. If they feel like, hey, at this point, we've addressed some of our needs in free agency, so we're not handicapped to go, and we can go kind of BPA. If Tyler Warren's sitting there at 19 and they feel like Cade Otton in the last year of his deal, he can be a great partnership and then maybe replace him or just upgrade over a guy like Payne Durham, Devin Culper, or Cole Keefe, that could be a wild card that they could get there at 19. But it's going to depend really, honestly, what they do in free agency, what becomes glaring there. But there's some names there that can make an impact. I don't know if any game-changing guys, unless one of them slips. But they're gonna have a good group of guys to select from there, or the opportunity to potentially move back.
JC, do you think that they do make a big move, whether it's free agency or via the trade, to shore up one of those positions so that you do get closer to best player available, in the draft? Because I think that's a huge part of, any team really, right? In the next couple of weeks before the NFL draft, like where do you get, this team will eliminate this position because they traded for this guy or they signed this guy. What angle do you think that they'll take in the trade market or the free agency market to try to fill in some of those holes first prior to the draft?
Obviously, going into the draft, you'd love to just be like, hey, we're good, BPA, right? Mm-hmm. Best player available, doesn't matter position. And you can still do that. I think if you're the Bucs, I don't know any big signing. I'm not projecting any, big trade for Hendrickson or Garrett or Crosby or Parsons. So rule that out. I don't really think there's many cornerback options that are going to be available. I know Jair Alexander was just thrown out there, but I don't think he's a fit anyways. Not the type of body that they look for at corner. I think this is going to be one of those. You may see some, maybe like a 3-year, $30 million deal or something like that. And you can call that, kind of a big move. But I think that's what you're looking at more so. Right. Whether or not Lavonte comes, they need depth at linebacker. We saw that last year. They need depth at cornerback. We saw that last year. They need depth at safety. Even if they move Tykees Smith to safety after releasing Jordan Whitehead, they still need more depth there. They are high on Kayvon Merriweather. So I think this is going to be one of those drafts where Jason kind of takes a playbook out of what Bill Belichick used to do when he worked with Bill. And that's not sign the high price free agents, but instead of getting that $10 million cornerback or, $15-20 million cornerback with inflation nowadays. You take that, maybe you get the $10 million cornerback and a $5 million backup, high-end backup. I think the goal of this offseason for Jason is to improve the floor of each room. And what we saw last year was Jamel Dean goes down, and instead of having a B player or a C+ player, something like that, you're starting to get D players, F players coming in with Tyreek Funderburk, and Josh Hayes, and JJ Russell, and Antonio Greer Jr., who half the people listening don't know who that is. So it's like Vi Jones. Instead of having that, I think they're going to invest in, and obviously it depends on what they do. Jamel Dean's the biggest cap casualty potentially left on the team if they're going to need a number one cornerback. So that's where I think they could spend some money. But I think it's going to be one of these things where, okay, we've got 4 pass rushers on the team right now, and that's Diaby, Braswell, Ramirez, and Watts. Let's add 2 in free agency, 1 in the draft. Let's figure out who our best depth is. What are our best depth? And I think that's going to be the big route for this Buccaneers team, especially after listening to Jason, is we're going to flood these positions with talent. That's, if we have an injury situation like last year, we know that we're in a good spot with someone else going. And I think that's what to expect more than a giant, massive blockbuster move.
Yeah, I like that. Fortifying the depth, making sure that, especially throwing numbers at certain position, like the pass rush, right? Like the interior defensive line, where it's, you're not worried about rotations for your offensive line, right? It's going to be your 5 guys right there. How do you think they address that guard spot? Do you think they bring Bredesen back? Do you think they maybe invest a pick there? Do they give Elijah Klein a look? Because 4/5 of the line, you kind of know what it's going to look like going into 2025, but that one spot is kind of the only question mark.
Yeah, they'd like to have Ben Bredesen back, but there's a cap on what they'll spend for it. Right, so if he's within their range, under $5 million a year, I think they'll bring him back, and I think they'll be happy about that. I know the offensive line room will be happy about that. As far as Elijah Klein, you don't just give it to Elijah Klein. You got to either draft someone fairly high, I'm talking 3rd, 4th round, to compete with him, or you're bringing in a veteran and saying, all right, it might not be like a big name veteran, like what they did last year with Bredesen and Opeta, right? Yeah. So you bring in someone like that and say, all right, let's let the best man win. I know they really do like Elijah Klein's development behind the scenes this past season. So, it's one of these things where Tate Ratledge is a guy that I really like, guard out of Georgia in the 3rd round. Didn't have a great season this year, kind of injury plagued a little bit here and there, but I think he'd be a great fit. There's some other guys in that 3rd, 4th round area that I think would be good fits if they did want, but that's more, I think, if they do a trade back situation to pick up more caps, more draft capital, then you're probably looking maybe an offensive guard early, but you never know. Jason loves watching offensive linemen. So if he falls in love with the one, you could look at, I mean, if Armand Mambu's there, the guard who's projected to go in the 1st round, and that shores it up. And now you have your offensive lineman, young, all 1st, 2nd, round pedigree. It could be something that tantalizes him, especially if he's there. But, I think Bredesen is option A. It depends on the money. Option B is, let's get a veteran, in here. You got to get a veteran in here anyways. You're not just going to trust a 3rd, 4th round rookie in Elijah Klein. Let's get another low-cost veteran in here with some upside, and then let's put some draft capital in the position.
Yeah, Jason, he's got to be itching right now to draft a 3rd round offensive lineman from a D3 school. He's itching, man. If he doesn't do that every other year, he kind of breaks out in hives.
He made sure to mention that. He did a spot on PFT, and they called him the O-line guru. And he's like, I just love watching offensive line film. Quarterback is boring to me. There'll be 5 plays where they didn't do anything, but offensive line, you're getting dirty every second. So
I love that.
He's definitely got his eye towards some of these. And there's some of these guys on here that just scream Jason Lion. I mean, he took Cody Mauch 2 years ago with no teeth. So there's some guys that kind of look like like they fit Jason's bill.
Cody Mauch, Co Keefe, Ryan Jensen type for sure. Before I let you go, JC, of course, we got to talk about the biggest news, and it has nothing to do with football. Elimination Chamber this weekend. What do you think happens with Rock and Cody Rhodes? Who do you think is going to win the men's and the women's Elimination Chamber match?
Shang Tsung over here. Your soul is mine.
Soul is mine. Yes.
It's going to be interesting. I think there's going to be some sort of dynamic where Cody says no, and then maybe we get, there's so many things in play right now. There's CM Punk's favor with Paul Heyman. He's in the eliminated. His obsession to headline a WrestleMania. Drew McIntyre and his obsession for the chase for the title to retain it more at WrestleMania. more than just 5 minutes after gloating. There's like so many different storylines within this. I think Cody says no, but I think it's going to involve and encompass someone else there.
Yeah, it has to.
And it's going to blow up in a huge way. As far as the women, I just think Liv Morgan, I know she just won the strap the other day for the tag team titles. Her and Rhea, she deserved it. She worked her butt off all year long. And Bailey, Roxanne are headed towards a promo themselves. I wonder if Jade comes back and maybe that starts off something with Bianca and Naomi. And then that maybe becomes like a triple threat situation there. And then obviously with Alexa, she's just back brand new. It would be difficult to put her in that spot right away, I think, with other guys paying their other, talent paying their dues in the last 2 years and her just coming back from, getting married and having a baby. But she's a wild card. But for me, it's just, and I know people are Bliss and Ray it out, but I think it's still such a big storyline. It can be such a big moment for them at Mania. It's going to be an interesting show for sure. I can't wait for it. And then obviously we got the unsanctioned match between Sammy and KO, which is going to be a lot of fun too. So it should be a good card. A lot of trickle down. I think I know a lot of people have been talking like this WrestleMania is around the corner. Like doesn't feel like it. I think this is where we get that shot of life into us. And we're like, okay, WrestleMania is around the corner. And whether that's John Cena maybe becoming heel and taking up the Rock's offer to get that last moment, he did say it's time to be selfish after the Royal Rumble, after he was eliminated. So is that something? He said he'll never go heel, but maybe, never say never, and we get a heel John Cena. Or maybe Cody says yes, and we finally get a lightning time. We finally get what we've all been wanting is the Homelander Cody. So, whatever happens is sure to progress storylines towards WrestleMania. It's sure to be a great show on Friday.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because that Sammy KO match is going to be nuts. It's going to be crazy. I'm with you. I think Cena turns heel in a way, shakes the Rock hand. I think because you got to start like positioning these pieces to WrestleMania, right? It's going to be Rollins. It's going to be Rollins and Roman Reigns. That's what it's going to be. Doesn't need a belt. That's the grudge match, the ultimate grudge match. Rollins has never, Reigns has never beat Rollins. He beat everybody the last couple of years. They had that match against Royal Rumble. It was a disqualification. That'll be the match where Roman comes back. It's the one-on-one. It doesn't need to be a main event. It doesn't need to be a title. That's a standalone match. Fine. Get those guys to the side. Fine. But CM Punk, all of this time has been talking about, I want a main event WrestleMania. I want a main event WrestleMania. I want a main event WrestleMania. I find it hard to believe that Jey Uso and Gunther are not going to main event night one, and everybody's going to go home yeeting, right? Like that just seems like WrestleMania is that show, right? Where it's very rare that you see a heel go over at WrestleMania, right? You saw it the one year where Roman beat Daniel Bryan and Edge, right? Stack them up. But let's not forget the other day was, Bianca Belair and Tasha Banks and, this guy running down, all the way down, my guy from the Street Profits, coming all the way down, hugging her. Like that's great. That's amazing, right? I truly believe it's going to be some semblance of Punk in the main event. But how do you get him in the main event and not boo Cody if he's the babyface? Well, you turn it into it's a best on best on best. And is Punk going to be pissed if he's in the main event in a three-way? Probably, unless he's in there with Cody Rhodes, one of his good friends who is the champ, and John Cena's final match. Right. If you tell Punk, hey, you're finally going to main event, but it's a three-way, but it's Cody and Cena, I think he signs up for that in a heartbeat. Now, where does that leave Drew McIntyre? People say Damian Priest, but I think he's too big of a name right now. I feel like Priest is that a match that you want to see? I don't know.
We saw it last year.
He did, I know. And they for a couple minutes. And then you mentioned Alexa Bliss. I feel like they teased the whole Judgment Day versus Wyatt Six, which, with this guy, Uncle Howdy, being injured, that's kind of put a little damper on that. I think Cargo comes back at Elimination Chamber, and I think something happens where she enters into the match and wins. Because, yes, something like that. We've seen it in the past before. Don't always think that those 6 or 7 people.
One of them is not going to make it. And I think Naomi's probably the one that's not going to make it. I could see Cargill taking out Naomi, finding out it was Naomi the whole time.
Right.
And Bianca, how did you not know? And now Naomi and Bianca get it. I don't know if she wins, but I think that would be a great way to set up Jade and Bianca, which is something we've been talking about for a couple of years now, happening at WrestleMania, and that gives them their one-on-one. If you take out Naomi, I mean, obviously it sucks for Naomi. Maybe she comes back and that, Bianca, how dare you didn't have my back and whatever, Jade, and now it becomes that triple threat match I alluded to. But it's certainly going to be interesting. I think it's too early for Jade to win. To go up against Rhea. I mean, if Rhea wasn't such a name, Io, I would that's going to be a banger of a match. Like that's to me be the best. It might not be the biggest catalyst, and it might not be like the biggest name because John Cena and CM Punk and like all these guys, but that's going to be the best match of the night. I'll tell you that.
So they're wrestling Saturday.
Yeah.
Io and Rhea, right?
Yeah.
So who does Rhea fight at WrestleMania? That's my thing.
That's the question.
Do you do a fatal four-way with her? And is there some kind of chicanery on Saturday where Io gets and deserves another shot? And then you do a four-way and you put that match together because you need somebody for Rhea, right?
Well, they're talking about doing a multi-man match for Braun too. So on the Intercontinental. So it's tough to balance. Now they have all these extra belts for the women and everything like that. So if it's going to be truly the night of champions, as WrestleMania should be, where almost and should be every belt is defended, it starts getting tricky how you build these matchup cards. And I think, again, Elimination Chamber, hopefully, I say that Triple H is very creative, but hopefully starts to give us some answers on how things are going to shake out. But I'm excited for it. Should be a heck of a show, man.
You got that right. Follow him on Twitter /X, JC Allen NFL, Bucs reporter, writer for Bucs Game Day, VP of PFWA Writers, Tampa chapter, Sick Pod. Go check that out as well. He does a little bit of everything covering our Buccaneers and, of course, talking some WWE with me. JC, appreciate your time, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the PLE. It'll always be a pay-per-view to me.
Pay-per-view.
It's pay-per-view to me, damn it.
At least I don't have to pay to view it now, so.
Yeah, we do what we got to do. Thanks, pal. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeet. All right, man. Yeet. We're yeeting